Hey, Michael Matt here. You tired of those annoying ads cluttering up our YouTube videos? We are too. Start watching our show at the totally ads-free remnant-tv.com. Well, what do you know? Bill Gates finally gets it exactly right on vaccines, and we agree with him. Joe Biden says Pope Francis really isn't trying very hard to stop abortion. Lawmakers applaud the nation's most brutal abortion law. And Pope Francis begs God to forgive us for damaging the earth? Finally, he's a football player going to the Super Bowl when he's not serving the Latin Mass. All this and more tonight from the Remnant Underground. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael Matt. This is the Remnant Underground. Kind of hungry here in the frozen Midwest since egg prices are skyrocketing now. You've all been aware of that?
They are.
Right?
Terrible. Everybody's buying chicken.
Yeah, buying the chickens. Remember when it was toilet paper, then it was baby formula? Well, now it's eggs. Not to worry, however, because we can always eat bugs.
The future of food is being revolutionized by science, as new research helps bring unexpected ingredients to the table.
Kind of tastes like shrimp.
Reminds you of like a Frito or a chip.
Now, we've been on this thing for a while with the bugs. The World Economic Forum has been cranking stuff out about this because they're lunatics. But I think that something's been overlooked a little bit. I mean, doesn't this just seem pretty insensitive to bugs?
Where are the bug rights activists?
Now, of course, I get it. I'm not an expert. Bill Gates wants us to eat bugs, and Bill Gates is awesome and everything. Who am I to ever question wild Bill Gates? But you know what? Even Bill Gates, every now and then, gets a few things wrong, you know? I mean, take those little old vaccines, for example.
We also need to fix the three problems with vaccines. The current vaccines are not infection blocking.
Good one.
They're not broad, so when new variants come up, you lose protection, and they have very short duration.
Now, what the heck? What did we just hear? Did you? Everybody here in the studio hear what I just heard Bill Gates say? We all hear this?
Keep going, Bill.
Oh my gosh. I mean, obviously that would have gotten this show a strike on YouTube just 8 months ago. Now, Bill Gates is out there admitting what we've been saying all along?
The current vaccines are not infection blocking.
So you're just gonna fix those vaccines for us, are you, Bill?
We also need to fix the three problems with vaccines.
So we should just wait here then while you whip up a new batch of vaccines? Is that what's going on? How stupid. You know what? Bill Gates can do whatever he wants. What scares the living daylights out of me is he can come out and say something like that 2-3 years in, and everybody's just like, well, I'm just getting ready to follow the science some more. Again, if they are so wrong about the medical science, which of course they have been all along, don't forget that when they tell you the climate's burning up. Please don't forget that. They have morons like Al Gore leading that charge, who's been wrong consistently all along.
We're still putting 162 million tons into it every single day, and the accumulated amount is now trapping as much extra heat as would be released by 600,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every single day on the Earth. That's what's boiling the oceans, creating these atmospheric rivers and the rain bombs and sucking the moisture out of the land and creating the droughts and melting the ice and raising the sea level and causing these waves of climate refugees predicted to reach 1 billion in this century. Look at the xenophobia and political authoritarian trends that have come from just a few million refugees. What about 1 billion? We would lose our capacity for self-governance.
The scientists are lunatics. And Gates is down there in Australia. He's down there admitting this about vaccines while attending the Australian Open, like as if nothing's going on here. Bill Gates was present in the stadium when Novak Djokovic won the Open. Now, for those of you who've been living under a rock over the past year, Djokovic was deported from Australia just last year for refusing to take one of Wild Bill Gates' mysterious jabs, right? And today?
The current vaccines are not infection blocking.
So I think what's happening here, it's very serious, because again, all of this, as we always say, is predicated, is based on generations of dumbing us down through the public school system. It's the only reason any of this works. But I do believe at this point, they are so desperate to maintain control over us, to get us all locked into that digital ID, passport thing and all of that to control the world. They're so desperate that they will say just about anything at this moment to sort of save face, regroup, and start over. Even to the extent of admitting to what folks like our show, what we've been saying all along, to what Djokovic and guys like that were saying from the very start, right? So the takeaway then, at least for the moment, friends, doctors and cops and nurses who refused to get jabbed, lost everything, the takeaway is that they were right. And then when it comes to this Djokovic story, behold the Christian guy who went up against the anti-Christians and won his freedom.
I want to congratulate everybody who are celebrating Christmas on the 7th of January. To all the Orthodox Christians, I wish them peace, love.
Now, I know some of you struggle with good news. You bring up somebody like Djokovic and you start Googling to find out he did bad things one time when he was like 15. He did something when I'm going to tell the world not to fall for it. But I would advise you, please, I would encourage you to stop that, because I don't care how much dirt you can dig up on a guy like Djokovic. Again, I'm not recommending him as a spiritual director or as a husband for your daughter or anything else. I'm just looking at the here and now in the moment, you see? And besides that, everyone's opinions, whether we're talking about DeSantis or Djokovic or everyone's opinion must be considered now with the BC AC scale. That is before COVID and after COVID. Because COVID has woken up millions and millions of people. And what Novak Djokovic is doing right now is what the world desperately needs to see. Do you understand? I'm not citing him as someone who should lead our movement. I'm talking about the public figure that is presenting an example of how we end up getting out of this nightmare. Is Djokovic. Before I am an athlete, he says, I'm an Orthodox Christian. Friends, we're up against demons. We're living in a world dominated by demons. And when you live in a world like this, what Djokovic just said matters.
This year has produced the worst God mockers in all of world history. We had the baby who made a mockery of Jesus' death on the cross. Kendrick Lamar offended Christians all around the world when he turned up to Glastonbury wearing a diamond-encrusted crown of thorns.
So yeah, when the number one athlete, certainly tennis player in the world, comes out and says, I'm Christian first, that matters. Let me give you another example. I've been boycotting the NFL for a long time. I told you guys before, I played college football. I love football. It's my favorite game. It wasn't easy. We've been boycotting the NFL ever since they went woke, ever since we did this video.
As the 2016 National Football League season got underway, an open letter was written by retired Marine Colonel Jeffrey Powers to NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell about players kneeling during the United States national anthem.
And that video picked up a lot of hits. I think we got, a million, almost 2 million views on that. And here's the thing. Even despite that, if there are guys in the National Football League today who are using that powerful, powerful platform to wake up the kids, to wake up people who are lost, to wake up people who are looking to Francis and bishops and priests and getting nothing, getting stones rather than bread from the Catholic Church right now, if there's somebody in the NFL that's waking them up better than the Pope is, we're all over that, right? So take this guy, for example.
Here's Butker. From 45 yards. All the way, it's good.
Now, he's a world-class athlete. He's a faithful husband, devoted father, and a traditional Catholic.
Harrison Butker is a kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. A star player, he is to many living the dream. After training, Harrison changes, but not into what you'd expect. He puts on a cassock and serves at Latin Mass.
Again, do you realize how much that matters? In the middle of this bizarre thing we've been talking a lot about in the Catholic Church, the Vatican trying to crush these last little pockets, enclaves of faith, folks that are going to the Latin Mass. In the middle of all this, a kid that's basically just took his football team to the Super Bowl is going to be on the national stage in a couple of weeks with millions and millions of people looking. And he's an altar boy?
What is it you get out of the Latin Mass?
Well, number one, the reverence for the Eucharist. If you go to a Latin Mass, communion's received kneeling on the tongue. There's a strong understanding of the sanctuary. There's a strong understanding of the altar and that it's a sacrifice going on. A lot of parishes and a lot of young people are starting to realize the beauty of the Latin Mass, that this is the foundation of the Catholic faith.
What the world desperately needs right now are heroes. We need people who will stand up for the faith. We need Christian heroes, people willing to stand up and fight. Now, Francis may call them rigorous. History calls them faithful Catholics. History calls them heroes. And the world has declared war on them all. The world has declared war on us. And we need to fight back, friends, as we say again and again and again, because it's the only way out of this. The COVID thing, for the moment, is falling apart, right? Because heroes fought back. Because people believed in something bigger than what was on the TV and the crap they're getting from the main establishment media and religious figures. They believed in something bigger. They fought back. Pfizer just got brutally exposed, right, by Project Veritas.
So YouTube just took down our Pfizer expose. It had 800,000 views. I really think it's third world that big, massive corporations team up with big tech monopolies to target journalism in these United States.
And he asked the question, this guy O'Keefe, what are you willing to give up to fight for what is right? In a recent interview. Are you willing to give up your comfortable life? And isn't that kind of what it's all about? Because James O'Keefe has been giving up a lot. He's been paying a heavy price. He's called a kook, a nut job, a conspiracy theorist, a fake news guy, every name in the book for what he's doing. Huge fan of G.K. Chesterton, by the way. He's an interesting guy. We'll get into that another time. But he has paid the price, from the cancellation of his social media, his Twitter accounts, of course, to harassment by the FBI, who recently raided his apartment.
And tonight, a major developing story after the FBI raided the home of Project Veritas CEO and founder James O'Keefe.
And what's he say he needs more of? He says he needs more prayer. Please pray for our team. Please pray as we expose evil and stand up to the system for justice as Christ would have us do. And you got the sanctimonious little holier than thou folks. Yes, but he's telling lies on the TV set when he says he's from Planned Parenthood. This is a lie. And my mother used to say, all's fair in love and war, right? This guy is kicking some lower spinal extremity, and the holy people are chastising him for telling fibs when he takes Pfizer down. I am speechless sometimes by the lack of any strategic sense. And Project Veritas, my gosh, do they ever get strategy? They actually, see on the screen right now, they actually rented an LED truck. I didn't even know you could do this. They rented an LED truck, play this video that YouTube took down, and park that bad boy right outside the Pfizer World Headquarters in Manhattan. Take a nice look at that, friends. That's strategy. That's how it's done. That's how you win. And we're going to start. We're going to keep doing what we always do our part right now in this moment to make sure we use every single bit of influence that we have to ensure that nobody, anywhere in the world, ever forgets how the Vatican allied itself with Pfizer. This is so essential, friends, because the Vatican's trying real hard right now to make us forget about that little connection. How Francis held secret meetings with Albert Bourla, the head guy at Pfizer. How he had Bourla speak at Vatican conferences. How he had Tony Fauci and Bourla speak at Vatican conferences.
The Vatican Pontifical Council for Culture and the Cura Foundation are organizing their 5th International Conference from May 6th to 8th. Speakers will include Anthony Fauci, Chelsea Clinton.
We will never, ever allow our audience, this audience, to forget. We need to chain Francis to Pfizer right now for the rest of his miserable pontificate, or until he falls on his knees and begs forgiveness from God and from the world for what he did to people, to children, people all over the world.
Dios Creador infunde en nuestros corazones un espíritu nuevo y generoso, un espíritu de justicia que nos movilice para asegurar el acceso universal a la vacuna.
This is no time to go soft on these guys. They're down, but they're not out. They'll be back. Mark my words. You know it. We all know it. They'll be back. Which is why we agree now with Cambridge University's Royal College certified general pathologist.
It's not a time to say I'm sorry. It's a time to put these bastards in jail. I'm calling it the big kill. We've seen the biggest kill ever in medicine's history, directly because of the intervention of these idiots into healthcare.
Never, ever forget what they did, friends. Please, for God's sake and the sake of your children, and so they can't do it in the future, never forget what they did. Never forget how Francis helped the globalists lock down and vaccinate the world, how he allied himself with Pfizer, allied himself with Bill Gates and the rest, allied himself with Davos. Never, ever forget. Because now, friends, while the Pope was dinking around, playing world-class globalist leader, globalist player, while he was doing that, everything else was going to hell. And so we've seen over the past 2 years a diabolical madness cover the earth such as no one ever saw before. Literally taking over the streets.
Outrage sparked all across the nation after Memphis police released a series of videos showing police officers beating a 29-year-old black man. Tyree Nichols died days later in the hospital.
You got a problem here. If you're going to go to your usual talking points, Mr. CNN watcher, because these guys are all black.
This section has been cut to appease big tech. For the full version, go to remnant-tv.com.
This is what it looks like when God's law ceases to matter. No politician's going to fix this. No politician can fix this. No new federal law is going to fix this. Life has become cheap, and it's not pretty. You know, first we committed deicide, right? I'm not talking about 2,000 years ago. I'm talking about in the last 50, 60 years. We just threw God out. We just killed. God is dead, remember? First we committed deicide, now we're committing national and international suicide. And where's Francis? Where's the spiritual leader? Where's the prophet of old, thundering fire and brimstone, calling people to repentance? Where is he? Well, at the moment, Pope Francis is starring in a brand spanking new documentary starring him.
Pope Francis is wildly anticipated.
After 4 years of working on this project with Pope Francis's help, the letter has been officially released. The documentary tells the story of the famous encyclical Laudato Si.
I started the movie, I think, with a prejudice that I felt that as a scientist or someone who believes in science, that people who believe in religion would naturally not be interested in my subject, the environment. Now, I don't think that we can solve any of the environmental problems without a moral component.
The letter strives to explain the complexity of climate change, but also aims to offer a message of hope, thanks to the testimonies of the people involved, including Pope Francis.
Meanwhile, here in Minnesota, our governor just signed a new law that will allow us to rip babies apart moments before they're born. Tear them limb from limb, crush their little skulls, drain their blood, suck their brains out. It's the new Minnesota Nice.
Governor Tim Walz caps a 4-week sprint to guarantee abortion access in state law. It was the Democrats' top priority after taking control of state government this month.
See that little kid there? A couple little kids? That's pretty blood-curdling video, isn't it? These are the adults. These are the folks running cities right now in the brave new world. Do you think it's going to get any better now when that's happening? Yay! They slaughter more. Abortion in Minnesota has been legal for decades. What are they applauding for? More blood. The blood sacrifice. The demonic blood sacrifice. The gods of hell need more blood, evidently, because they already had the right to choose. And this new bill here in Minnesota, remember, folks, this is flyover land. You expect this kind of crazy from the coast, maybe? We're smack dab in the middle of the country. The whole country, in other words, is going belly up. Well, Francis is making that groovy documentary. And this whole thing was in the works for months here in Minnesota, ever since, of course, the November elections. This was back when Pope Francis was in Assisi, working on the Economy Francesco, and begging God's forgiveness, not for abortion, but for damaging the planet.
Vorrei concludere con una preghiera. Io la leggo e voi da cuore la seguite. Padre, ti chiediamo perdono per aver ferito gravemente la terra.
Can you believe how self-absorbed this guy is? How he caters to the kids. He listens to the kids. It's all about him. You know that, right? He's just putting on a show and using little kids, young people, to push his demonic agenda. Oh, he likes to brag about his listening church, his church of accompaniment, his synodal church, which nobody gives a flying rat's keister about except for him and some of his weird friends. You know, but who's listening to these people? Some of these kids up on the screen, these babies on the screen. Who's listening to them? Anybody worried about them? Who's listening to this woman?
Many Americans have no idea that babies can even live through abortions and are often left to die. But this does happen. I know this because I was born alive in an abortion clinic after being burned in my mother's womb for 18 hours.
Now keep in mind, what just happened here in Minnesota and what happened at the national level as well, is that they made it illegal to take an abortion survivor like this beautiful woman to the hospital as a baby. They made it illegal. They want to make sure nobody ever survives an abortion. And also keep in mind that when Governor Walz signed this thing, it passed the Minnesota Senate by just one vote. There were 34 yeas to 33 nays. And the last yay, that came from a professor who's employed up at St. John's University in Collegeville, who's now a newly elected Minnesota state senator. I know, we're all used to this. We saw University of Notre Dame go to hell a long, long time ago. They made war on the universities, Catholic universities first. Not much Catholic about them anymore. But this St. John's University was a premier Catholic university. And I just think the irony is rich that Francis is just feverishly trying to shut down Latin masses all over the world. And I would ask His Holiness and his defenders, where's Francis's order to get pro-abort psychos out of Catholic University professor positions? Where's that order? That coming? Oh, it's not? Why not? If only this pointless, useless church of accompaniment could bring itself to care as much about abortion as it does about climate change, and for that matter, as it does about COVID. Remember when COVID landed? Remember when it was detonated? The Catholic Church positively sprang into action after years and years and years of doing nothing ever, but just talking so gentle about journeys and accompaniment and making Jesus' message relevant to the world, right? Nothing. After years of doing nothing, COVID lands, and man, they were like Navy SEALs, the Catholic bishops, weren't they? They masked everybody up, right? They closed all the churches down. They got teams and armies of guys to run around and put tape on the floor of every church in Christendom. Don't step on the tape. Stay 6 feet away. Instructions on the wall, what to do about social distancing, right? They were really efficient. Plastic barricades all over the place. Got rid of confession. Got rid of mass. No going to communion. Wow. Impressive, wasn't it? I'm not sure, but I think maybe they even went from talking like this to talking like men again about COVID. And I guess I would just think a lot of people would agree with me that wouldn't it be just super duper fantastic if the Catholic bishops in the Vatican tried to stop abortion with the same level of enthusiasm? Makes you kind of wonder, doesn't it? Maybe they don't even care about abortion anymore. Maybe when Francis talks about abortion is like hiring a hitman, whatever that means, rather than abortion is a mortal sin that sends those who commit it to hell. Maybe Francis is not that committed to ending abortion. Bill Gates certainly isn't. Francis's friends in Davos certainly aren't. The United Nations, they certainly don't care about ending it, and Francis loves them. Take our guy Joey Biden. Now, he's a Catholic. He thinks that Francis is on his side. Here's what he said.
Catholic bishops are demanding that federal tax dollars not fund abortion. No, they are not all doing that. Nor is the Pope doing that.
Now, everybody got really mad at Joe Biden for saying this, but I guess I sat back in this case and I thought, poor Joey. I mean, he doesn't get much right. He can't string sentences together at all anymore, right? But is it really Joey's fault? He's a total idiot, I get it, but even a total dolt can read Pope Francis's tea leaves when it comes to abortion, right? Francis reportedly told Joe Biden that he could keep receiving communion, for heaven's sakes, even though he's the most pro-abortion president in the history of this country. Where's Biden supposed to get the sense that Francis is pro-life? Meets with Nancy Pelosi, gives her communion, has somebody give her communion at in St. Peter's, right? And long before that, Francis was meeting with people like this woman. Do you remember her? Italy's most prominent abortion activist who helped pass Law 194 that legalized abortion in Italy. Now she's out there screaming that the overturning of Roe versus Wade, well, this threatens Italy's right to kill babies. Catholic Italy? This threatens our beautiful Italy's right to continue to kill babies, says this creature. And in the 2016 interview with Corriere della Sera, Francis is the one who praised this creature as, quote, among the great ones of today's Italy. They say, says Francis, this is a person who thinks very differently from us. True, but never mind. We have to look at people, at what they do. Really. And what did this creature do? Well, before it was legal, she came up with an apparatus, some sort of a suction apparatus, by which she was able to personally exterminate 10,000 babies in Italy before going on the warpath and becoming a champion of legal abortion in Italy and legal divorce and drugs and everything else. She's a sweetheart. So what's Francis doing? Meeting with her. What's he doing that for? Because he's super pro-life? Is that it? A pope, the stature of the pope, the most recognized spiritual moral leader in the world, meets with something like that, and we're supposed to say, well, I'm pretty sure he's still pro-life. Everything he does is scrutinized in a way that no one else on earth is scrutinized. Everything he does sends a signal. He has a team around him making sure everything he wears, everything he drives, everything he says conveys the right message. And he meets with Italy's premier abortion advocate. Oh, I see. He's pro-life. Come on, Joe Biden. Figure it out, guy. And meets with her, maybe. He meets with his people like Benino because all of Francis's globalist friends, love this particular woman.
Here to present the Fred Cuney Award to Emma Bonino is International Crisis Group's co-founder, George Soros.
I met Emma Bonino some 25 years ago.
So there you have it. Soros, Francis, pro-aborts, big and small. And you're going to blame Joe Biden for thinking maybe the Pope's not really all that pro-life. After all, he said that thing about hiring a hitman, remember? You're going to blame Joe Rogan and Donald Trump for going soft on the gay thing all of a sudden, right? When the Pope himself has gone soft on that and is going softer on it every day.
On any other day, the Pope's appearance in Vatican City without a mask on might have generated more headlines. But the Catholic leader had set the news agenda with his clearest pronouncement yet on gay relationships. In a documentary about his life which premiered at the Rome Film Festival, the pontiff said he thinks same-sex couples should be allowed to have civil unions. Telling filmmakers, homosexual people have the right to be a family. They are children of God. What we have to have is a civil union law. That way they are legally covered. In the documentary called Francesco, the Pope is also seen encouraging two gay men to attend church with their children.
You see what I'm saying, friends? This is why on this show we spend so much time talking about Francis. Because we are a civilization, I was going to say in decline, we're a civilization in total collapse. And the only way of reversing that or stopping that or arresting that collapse is for someone to call this world back to God. That's the job of Pope Francis. That's the job of the bishops. You know, the bishops who are primarily worried at the moment about climate change and getting the driver's licenses to illegal aliens. That's the kind of thing they're really exercised about. But calling people back, calling them to repentance, they can barely, most of them, they can barely even have a solid pro-life message. And so the only hope left, friends, is that something or someone will finally force the world to turn back to God, right? It's the recurring theme, week in and week out. It's going to happen. That's what we have to keep working for. And you know what? I would argue, and I want to close on this, I would argue that something is turning us back to God. It's not Francis. He's babbling away about accompaniment and journey and, synodality. Not Francis. You know who's turning us back to God? The globalists. The globalists are turning us back to God because they've reached a level of depravity so evil that it's like witnessing an exorcism, isn't it? And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm looking at Satan in this person. If Satan truly exists, God must truly exist as well, right? They've reached that level now where we're looking at darkness and evil and we're saying, we can't handle this on our own. And finally, friends, I'm going to close this show tonight by begging you once again, as we do every week, to remember one thing. Remember this, we are not alone. You are not alone. Francis and friends, as they're trying to shut all of our churches down, they want us to think we're basically just a couple of nutters that need to be silenced, right? They want us to think that we're alone. This is total fake news. People are waking up all over the world. Case in point, back in January, thousands of warriors of Mary met in the Basilica of St. Vincent de Paul in Poland to pray the rosary, to attend Mass, to consecrate themselves to the same holy war that we're fighting on this side of the Atlantic. Look at this, 8,000 men singing a battle song that dates back to the 12th century. Mother of God, they sing. From your Son, our Lord, chosen Mother Mary, win over for us, send to us. Son of God, for the sake of your Baptist, hear our voices, hear the prayers that we offer. Give us what we ask for. Kyrie eleison. Friends, look at the screen. 8,000 men, 8,000 heads of families. You know what that's telling you, or it should tell you? The same thing that we see when we go to Chartres, when we go every year. It's telling us, it's telling the world, you cannot kill Christianity. And the more you try, the more we will remember the martyrs who died for it, who watered the tree of Christendom, who watered the tree of Western civilization with their blood. The greater the persecution against Christians, the more woke for Christ Christians become. And that, friends, is happening right now all over the world. So we say to Francis the globalists, bring it on, Francis. Take away our Latin Mass. We've been there before. We know what to do. We did it once before. We'll do it again. Your persecution is only forcing us to remember the promises of our baptism that we had set aside for a time, to remember what we have lost, and to see in how much you hate the old faith, how much we love it, and how much we must never ever forget it, how much we desperately need to reclaim it as our birthright as followers of Jesus Christ. These globalists, including the Pope, are making us friends. They are making us Christian again. They're waking us up. God is using them to turn us back to Him, to turn us back into the Christian soldiers of Jesus Christ that our fathers were. And if that means martyrdom for us, well then, we who are about to die salute you.